Good morning, community. Good morning, my brother and sister, stroke survivor. Welcome to Stroke of Genius podcast. This is a special series we're doing on mindset. And I got a really amazing guest for you today. She was with me on LinkedIn, live with on LinkedIn. And by the way, this is now for some reason LinkedIn just came up with a thing saying it's not broadcast now. Don't know what happened. But her name is Lisa Schermerhorn. And she's an executive mindset coach. And as you know, we're doing this series dedicated to change your life, stroke survivor, and changing and making you realize that your mindset means everything. Your mindset will radically change your life. So let's get right into it. I'm gonna get it. Love it on. Let me get this.
The Stroke of Genius podcast, hosted by brain aneurysm and stroke survivor Aaron Avila, sharing the experiences of survivors and CEOs. This is your destination for inspiration.
Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're coming from the mines of Vermont. Pretty amazing.
Literally.
Yeah. Just so everybody knows out there, those logs back there. I just confirmed this morning. She lives in Log County in the hills of Vermont, the mountains of Vermont. Pretty amazing. That's absolutely stunning, gorgeous. And so we're going to find out a lot about what happened this morning with her in Vermont. But Lisa, introduce yourself to my community.
Yeah. So I've been a mindset coach for about 20 years. From the time when I was very young, what motivated me to get into this is because I grew up thinking I was stupid. When I was in kindergarten, I had minor learning disabilities, and I had no idea. Everyone else was reading and writing and doing their math, and I couldn't. So I went to every summer school every summer, and always thinking that I was stupid. And by the time I was about 38, I had a nervous breakdown, and I didn't want to be here. I didn't understand my purpose, and I was suicidal. And I went from therapist to therapist to therapist, and no one was able to help me until I finally found someone who specialized in some cutting edge techniques that work with the subconscious mind and working with mindset. And it changed my life so much that I wanted to go out and help other people. And that's what I've been doing. So it's amazing. So I help people in all types of situations shift their mindset. And why I love this so much is you can do this quickly. And so it helps people shift and move on with their lives and help them have a better life.
Well, Lisa, what struck me when you were introducing yourself was that your purpose was found in your storm, that during the most difficult time of your life, your purpose was born.
That's everyone. Your wounds are your greatest gifts because no one knows that pain better than you do. And I believe that your wounds are your greatest purpose. So when you go through a difficult time, what happens is it's what you make of it. It's what you choose to do with it because no one gets out unscathed. And I can't tell you how many times people would look at me, years ago and say, "Oh, Lisa, you have this perfect life," not knowing that deep down I was so depressed, didn't want to be here, and no one knew because I kept it a secret until there was a point where I couldn't function anymore. And I knew that I wasn't going to leave this earth because not by my hand anyway, but I didn't know how to pull myself out of it. And I had two teenagers, and I didn't want to do that to them. And so I searched and searched and searched. And when I discovered that I could get to the subconscious mind where most of our beliefs are and help people release that and using techniques that work quickly, I was like, this was a game changer for me. It was an absolute game changer for me. And I will tell you that I work with people with all backgrounds. I had two clients in a row, and this was a big lesson for me because one time I had someone come to me who had been raped at knife point and helping her through that. And then the next client came because he was crying over 6 foot putt. And I sat there and I was like, he was a golfer because I've helped golfers win titles and golfer of the year. It's all mindset. But it was all perspective for me. And I was getting really upset. And then when he left, I realized it was not about the putt. It's never about the putt. It's what that deeper self-esteem and how we're impacted, and how he had no idea that it was not about the putt. It was something much deeper that he needed to work through.
I think that's really, that really is what we think the problem is. It's not really what the problem is. It's
Right.
much deeper, it's much more obvious. As you know, most of my community, all my community has had a stroke. And
Right.
they brought with the will to live. I'll be honest with you, the very essence of will to live. One thing I want stroke survivor out there to know, that survival doesn't mean you stroke. Lisa survived suicidal thoughts, depression, amongst many other things. I survived stroke, many other things. And we're gonna be talking about mindset and how she just told us that she was counseling a golfer. And he thought it was all about the putt. But it wasn't. It's about his mindset. Because me, at least he meant no before my stroke. Oh, you meant no golf. I was a 3 handicap golfer, which is near perfect golfers.
Wow.
What they call scratch golfer. Now I'm just handicapped. But it's a mind game. But life that we deal with on a daily, whether it be stroke, suicide, depression, whatever, is a mind game. But how do you tap into the mindset of being fulfilled as a person?
Well, I've watched people will themselves to live, and I've watched people will themselves to die. I had a friend 3 years ago or 2 years ago was given a death sentence. She had cancer, and it was literally metastasized through her entire body. And the doctor said to her, get your things in order because you have less than 9 months to live. And she looked her doctor in the eye and said, "You have no idea who you're talking to."
I love that.
And she found some doctors out of the country and did some things. And I was just skiing with her this morning. And she said it's a miracle. She just spoke to her doctor, and he said, "I can't believe," because her hip was so riddled with cancer, they couldn't even see the bone in the x-ray. It had metastasized from the breast through her body. So she is skiing now. And cautiously. So what I say is that that's not everyone's prognosis, but she was meant to be here. That was part of her purpose, was to overcome that. One thing we had talked about, I think it was yesterday, there's a fellow, Shane Burkall, who was born with a debilitating illness that almost puts him, that keeps him in a wheelchair. I don't know what his illness is, but he almost looks like someone who's had MS or something, or multiple muscular dystrophy. His muscles are atrophied, and he was told that he would never live to 30, and he was told he'd never have a normal life. If you have an opportunity to see this fellow, he is in a wheelchair. He just celebrated his 30th birthday, and he is married to a woman who is an angel. She's gorgeous.
She is gorgeous.
She's gorgeous. And she cares for him and she loves him, and they have a podcast and they talk about it. And he goes through his own issues of feeling down and feeling like a victim and feeling all these things. And they have honest, real conversations and through the podcast. And what I invite you to, is that we don't want to deny our feelings, but at the same time, we can reframe it because we're alive. We're alive. We can contribute in some way, whatever that looks like. I was just saying that I live at a ski mountain. I went up this morning. I skied a couple runs. This particular ski mountain has a mountain on it where they have a program for para skiers. So these are Olympic, athletes and all kinds of people from all different backgrounds who they train ski instructors to ski with them. Blind skiers, blind skier with 4 instructors around them with microphones talking to them, telling them when to turn. And I'll tell you that I'm often afraid to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night in the dark because I'm going to stub my toe. I mean, these are courageous people. And they have these chairs on skis, and they have 2 instructors with them, and they have people skiing. You can do what you decide you want to do. You can fight for it. Just like Aaron, I invite you to talk about, what what was it? What was the event that happened to you that changed you from being a victim to a survivor? What was it for you that changed? Because I know we talked about you being suicidal as well and feeling like your life was over.
Well, I think probably for me, I mean, something just took from what you just shared, and that blind person skis blew my mind. That now that blind person can lay there depressed, suicidal, and choose to not live again
Right.
and choose to be in darkness, dark energy. But they're choosing to step out and put themselves down the slope. And that just amazed me. Not because of anything other than they chose not to focus on the negative. They shifted their mindset, like you not talked about, to focus on their life. Grateful, at least I've heard. I always get to what your question, but you've heard that where your focus goes, your energy flows.
Right.
And that, my stroke community, there's so many stroke survivors out there, I know personally, that focus on, they're negative, they're dark, they're not suicidal, but they're just surviving. Living day in and day out doing the same thing, just treading water. And never really coming to that purpose, the fullness of life they have out there for them. And a lot of times that the same thing, your question, what changed me? This same thing can change anybody. I'm not special, so it's what you choose to focus on.
Right.
And for me, I can remember, and I've told you before, when I first had my stroke, I thought my life was over. I lay in bed suicidal, figured out how I killed myself. And then you and I both know, then I met global business celebrity Jeffrey Hazelwood. And when I said I met him, I saw him, I met him on YouTube. And he started talking about mindset. He started talking about attitude, how it shapes our success. And I realized, hey, I'm paralyzed, half paralyzed, can't walk, but I can change my attitude. I can change my mindset. Sure enough, look at me today, what I'm doing. I'm not blind. The only reason I'm doing what I do is because of where I changed my mindset. So that was my biggest life changer, was that Jeff Hazel changed me, realizing that my success. Sorry, just got a warning right live on you in LinkedIn. I try again. It's not working. Why you tell me that? Sorry. This is live, folks. Bear with.
It's live, no worries. But one of the biggest things you talk about is gratitude. And what I also work with people is reframing, because you talk so much, and this is a big thing with golfers. When you focus on where you don't want the ball to go, where does the ball go?
Go. You didn't want
It
to. Yeah.
goes exactly where you don't want to go.
I knew it really well.
So what you want to do is always focus on what you want, not what you don't want, because the subconscious mind doesn't know negatives. Do you ever notice, like, you're always walking around like, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this, and then all of a sudden, look what you've manifested. And your mind, your brain, your soul is that powerful. You manifest your thoughts, you manifest what you want. And the more positive and the more deeply in gratitude and forgive, because if someone is paralyzed because, let's say, they've had a car accident, and let's say a drunk driver hit them. Okay, so now they're bitter and angry, and all they're focused on what this person did to them. Well, now what are they going to do? Now this has happened, what are they going to do? What are you going to focus on? And this works on so many levels. When we are born, our brain works in many different frequencies. When we're born, our brain is what in something called delta, and it's a big wide wave. And you think about all the things that a baby has to absorb as they develop, and included in that are your parents' beliefs, the beliefs of your siblings, the beliefs of your ancestors. We inherit beliefs and traumas that come in through our DNA, through the science of something called epigenetics. So everyone thinks we come in a blank slate. No, we're already coming in being programmed at a deep level. And then we move into what's called theta in elementary school, where kids are in the state of theta, which is the state of creativity and imagination. It's why children run around, and they create things, and they're always, playing in the woods with fairies and mud pies and things like that.
Right.
As we move into alpha, it's another, that's our meditative state, and it's where we can manifest from. When we meditate and we zone out, when we're driving and we're in that zoned out state, that's the meditative state. So when we're in that state, that's when we can connect to source. And when we focus on what we want, because source, God, whatever you want to call it, when you're in that meditative state and in a state of gratitude, all things are possible. All things. So I always encourage meditation, deep breathing, things like that. So we have these programs that come in. And then on top of that, then a trauma or an accident or a stroke happens. And now people, depending upon their mindset, they decide what kind of life they want. Now, there's a lot of guilt that happens because now they have to have other people care for them. So there's a lot of that happens. But what I invite you to think about is people who are caregivers love being caregivers. It's something that they came into the world to do. And so they love it. They just have to take the time to make sure that they take care of themselves as well. But by feeling guilty, you're taking their joy, because they want to do that. This is what they live for, is to be a caregiver. So you're giving them an opportunity to show how they love. So some of the techniques that I use are deeper, like in talk therapy, which is very important. We're talking in something called beta, which is where we're at now. But a lot of the trauma and belief system get programmed in deeper parts of our brain. So when we release those belief systems, the traumas and things like that, you can be in neutral. And what I mean by that is when something runs you, when you have a belief that actually runs you, it's all you think about. And I use the example of Joan Rivers, the comedian, who was obsessed with being ageless. So she was always having chronic, constant plastic surgery. And she could never be young enough. She could never be beautiful enough. That was her wound. And what happened? It ran her so much that she died during a surgery. It killed her. So it's one thing to have a belief. It's another thing to have it run you. So I have a technique called the emotional release method. And what we do is we focus on the feeling in your body. So if you're frustrated about something, you focus on it, give it a number from 0 to 10, 10 being the highest, and then we release it. Should I let it go? Yes. Could I let it go? Yes. When? Now. And I do that with people until they release it and become neutral. And here's a really remarkable story about my mentor who's 92 years old, and he had a ponytail, and he drove a Mercedes convertible, amazing man. And he has had a daughter who was in her 60s, who was a doctor, and she fell and hit her head, and she was hemorrhaging. And he called me the next day and he said, I was up all night and I was worrying about her. And he said, he decided, how does it help her by worrying about her in the middle of the night and not getting enough sleep? And he said, I realized that I wasn't helping her. And then he said, how am I helping me by worrying about me all the time and not getting any sleep? And he decided to get to a place of neutral. And what that is that so when he's needed, he's available to make clear and conscious decisions. Because what happens is when we are in a situation where we are in fight or flight, when we have post-traumatic stress disorder, we're in fight or flight. Well, what happens is all the blood leaves our brain, goes out to our extremities, because the way we are built is that this is to run from the saber-toothed tiger, or when how you have a mother that can lift a car off of their child because they're in that place of survival. So when we are in that fight or flight situation all the time, what happens is we can't think clearly. And when we are in that place of feeling sorry for ourselves and victim, how much of our energy is going into that? Probably 80 to 90% of our energy is going into being a victim and feeling sorry for ourselves. How much is left to live? There's not much. And when I went through this process of releasing, I also had this deep need to worry. I was worried about something happening all the time. I was worrying. And I realized that 80% of my thoughts were going to worry. So when my mentor helped me release that, I literally walked around for 2 weeks and I didn't know what to think about. Because when you are so focused on the negative, there's no room for positive energy to come in, positive thoughts. So when I released that need to worry, I was in a fog. And then all of the sudden, all of these beautiful new thoughts, all of these things started happening because I was focusing on what I wanted now instead of what I didn't want. And everyone has an opportunity to make a difference in the world, no matter what. God doesn't make any mistakes. And I'm not a religious person, so I don't want people sitting there going, oh, she's trying to proselytize and tell everyone. I'm not a religious person at all. What I will say is I am spiritual, and what I've learned is to connect. And there's a fellow named Greg Braden, who's a scientist, and found a study that we have, obviously, brain cells in our brain. Thank you, Sherry. We have brain cells in our brain, but what they've discovered is our heart has cells that resemble brain cells. So when we experience something, we want to work on it cognitively, right? But we also want to work on it from our heart, from a soul, because we experience that trauma too. So if you just work on it from a mindset point of view, just from the brain, the cognitive, you still walk around with that pain in your heart from feelings. That's why it's important to do both. You need to access both. And that's why oftentimes people will say, oh, I've been seeing this great therapist for 20 years. I've been working on it. I feel better. And I'm like, well, you could be given coping skills, which are very important. But if you have stuff that's, pain that's at a deeper level, you can't access it in talk therapy. It's just not possible. Does this all make sense?
I'm, as you can tell, I'm just speechless. I get to listen to you, so keep going.
Okay. So when you work, we call it somatic. When you have your thoughts, every time you have a thought, you have these what's called neuropeptides that go out throughout your body and attach to your cells throughout your body. And that's why I have this amazing book. Let me see, it's right here. It's called Your Body Speaks Your Mind by Deb Shapiro. Okay. And she talks about your thoughts and how they impact certain parts of your body. Okay. So when you have, for instance, I'm going to tell you a story. I got news a number of years ago that one of my best friends had died. And I didn't know that she was going through something awful. And because she hid it from everyone. And I was asked to come down to do one of the eulogies to speak. And I flew down and I did it. And then on my way home, because I felt so much guilt, like, why couldn't I have done more? Why didn't I know? What was it? And I was on the airplane coming home, and my right eye was bright red. It looked like I'd been punched in the eye. When I got home and I looked in my book, the body-mind connection was, what is it you don't want to see? What is it you don't want to know? Okay. Yeah. That's how powerful. So I made a list of my pain and my guilt and all of that I couldn't help her. And I released it. I went through that process. Should I let it go? And I released and I released and I released. And then in 3 days, it went away. I didn't have to go to the doctor. But there's certain body parts like lower back. Lower back pain can often be caused by feeling unsupported by other people or circumstances. It can also mean money issues. And so we want to look at that. When people have chronic shoulder issues, we talk about feeling that they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And these are often people who do too much, care too much, and they don't take care of themselves. They're too busy caring for others. And this is where, especially caregivers, they need to have a balance. It's okay to set boundaries and care for yourself. It's okay to bring someone else in to help for a day and give yourself a break. So this is really important for people to know that, we don't always have days that are balanced. I had a day yesterday, I worked 12 hours. And then because of that, I gave myself this morning a couple hours to get out in the sun and get some exercise and then come back. And so I have the flexibility with my work that I can do that. But then tomorrow and this afternoon, I have a lot of makeup work to do, and that's okay. But I invite people to really go inward and look at what is the lesson? What is the lesson of why I'm in the situation? What is it that I had to stop and do? What is it that was going on in my life before that is different now? And what do I need to do to heal? And I will say one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself and others is the act of forgiveness. And mostly forgiving yourself. And there's an ancient Hawaiian prayer called the Ho'oponopono. And there's a story about this that goes back to, if anyone knows the movie The Secret, there was a fellow on it, Dr. Joe Vitale, and he wrote a book called Zero Limits. And it's based on a true story where he saw an article in the newspaper about a man who was in Hawaii, and he was a therapist. And there was a jail that needed a therapist for the section of the jail for the criminally insane. And that area was so out of control that they couldn't keep people there to work. The guards were leaving. It was a terrible place to work. They couldn't keep therapists. And by law, they legally had to have a therapist there to work with them. And they went to Dr. Hewlin and asked him if he'd be willing to work for them. And he said, well, the way I work is I don't see the patients directly. I just want their file. And then he prays over them. And they're like, are you out of your mind? And they didn't hire him. And then a couple months later, they were desperate because they had to legally hire someone. So out of desperation, they hired him. And then what happened was, one by one, the inmates started leaving and going either to a mental health facility or back into the prison population until that absolutely that whole section of the prison was emptied out.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what he did was this ancient Hawaiian prayer. So what he was doing was, we all have the capability to do everything and anything. When we judge people who steal cars or murder or do anything, we have not walked in their shoes. We don't know what has happened to get them there. We don't know what we would do in their situation. I'm not justifying that it's okay to do these things. I'm just saying that I had a tour of a prison once, and the officer who was giving me a tour said, the only difference between us and them is that we had a support system and they didn't. And that hit me hard. And they showed me this girl in lockup. They opened up to show me what solitary confinement looked like. Whoa. And the girl that walked out looked just like my daughter. And she was about 20 years old. And I thought, what had her life had to be like in order for her to end up like this? And it was literally this tiny room that had a bed and a sink. And that was it. And enough room to barely stand up. And she had to be in there 23 hours a day. She got 1 hour out. So what is it that happens in our lives that put us in these situations? What is it that we can do to be of service to ourselves and humanity? Like, Erin, you've taken this opportunity, and I say this because you look at this as a gift now, to be of service to others, to help others. And what you're doing is an inspiration not only to stroke survivors, but other people who have had to overcome great adversity. And it's not only people with physical issues, but I look at people in mental illness as well. Because people will look at me and go, you don't have any problems. What's your issue? You have this perfect life. And I will tell you that it was part of what beat myself up, is that I didn't feel that I had the right to that as well. I was depressed, and then I beat myself up and said, you have no right to do this because you have this beautiful life. Why are you so depressed? There's something wrong with you. And I beat myself up over and over and over again and plummeted deeper and deeper. And I felt like I couldn't get out. And so depression and suicidal ideation doesn't make sense. And for people who are outside of that and have never experienced it, will never understand the shame and the guilt and the pain that goes along with it. And they feel like you're doing people a favor by not being here. It's not, people say, oh, this is a selfish thing. It is not in the eyes of someone who tries to kill themselves. They think they're a burden on other people, and they think by going away that they'll make other people's lives easier. And what they don't realize is that's not the case, the amount of pain that it creates by doing that.
Well, Lisa, I could just sit here and listen to you. It's amazing. I mean, you're speaking so much truth and so much realness. The thing that I see mostly that I've seen in my lifetime, seeing you talk about and hearing you talk about now, and then I'm thinking my stroke survivor community. The majority of stroke survivors looked at your choice. they had a stroke, they're victim, they're hopeless. They have their life is sitting in the chair till they die. And I realize by what you're saying, what we're talking about this morning, is that we have a choice. We have a choice to our mindset to either see the glass half full or half empty.
Right.
And
Right.
that glass is our life and the life's circumstances, whether hard, difficult, or easy. It's how we view our life. And that we are actually in control. We can actually control our destiny. And I encourage everybody out there, choose to see your life half full.
Yes. We all have something. No, I have friends who look at me. I wrote a book, and I'm going to do a shameless plug here. It's called In Every Belief is a Lie, and it's available on Amazon. And I know for some of your people here may not have the ability to read because of their impairment, but I'm in the process of recording the audiobook, so that will be available too, and I'll let you know when that comes out. I just have to get over my fear of technology. But what I will say is there's techniques in there that will help you, as well as, you know, going. I went through a divorce. I was married for 29 years, and one of my greatest fears was to be alone. And my story is that I literally knew that because it was my greatest fear that I was going to have to be alone.
Yeah, you created it.
And so I created it. And so what did I do? I ended up in a situation where I was. And what I realized that once I got over my fear, I realized that I have had more joy in my life and I'm not alone. And I have people who come and go and live with me, stay with me, and I'm not alone. And I have the most amazing group of friends. I've created my own family here. I have work that gives me the flexibility of things that I love, and I get to be of service to humanity. And I get to use my own stories and my own experiences to help others. And it's with the book tour that happened, I got to speak a lot on stages, and it was something and meet people and talk to people about their circumstances. And I can't tell you the joy that has come over me of seeing other people like you who inspire me every day. And the difference between, there's also a study that was done with fleas, and they put fleas in a glass jar and they turned it upside down, and the fleas were jumping up and down and stayed within the glass. And this is the crazy part. They removed the glass and the fleas didn't know that the glass was gone, that they were free, and they continued to jump within the confines of where that glass was. That's the fixed mindset. We see our limitations. We see what the doctors, and I will tell you, there are a lot of great doctors out there, but I can't tell you how many stories that I hear from people who were given a certain sentence, and they're laughing and they're looking at me and they're going, look, I was told I'd never walk again. Look, I was told that I had 9 months to live. Look, I was told this by a doctor. And you know what? Doctors are not always right. And the problem is that when a doctor gives someone a sentence, then someone sets that as their own expectations, the glass where the fleas are, and they live inside those parameters and they never attempt to move outside of it. And I will tell you from the bottom of my heart, if you get anything away from this podcast right now, there are no limitations. There are no walls. You are capable of doing what you desire and bring yourself joy no matter what.
Yeah, but that's really, really a great way to end because it's choice. And a lot of stroke survivors, a lot of people out there, and this isn't not just for stroke survivors, but anybody out there, you could choose how your destiny goes. At least right to my community. Stroke doesn't define you, but how you respond does. And I think it's so true. And that response is mindset. You could choose to roll, curl up, and die and be miserable till the day you die, or you choose life. You choose to focus on shift your mindset and focus on possibilities. Like you
Yes.
just said, nothing is impossible.
Yeah.
You could do all things with the right mindset. And so many times, my stroke community, there is a thing, a way of thought out there that your value, your your as a human being is based on your ability to recoup what you should be like. Well, that's never going to happen. That is destined to fail because I've had a stroke. Nothing can ever take that away. But if I respond, say, hey, how can I use this? What can I learn? How can I help people?
Yeah.
Like what you and I are doing right now.
Right.
It's just fantastic.
Well, we have people in those situations every day. They get in car accidents and become paralyzed, right? Some people end up with Lou Gehrig's disease. We have people with situations all day long, and it's what they choose to do with it. Now, pain is pain, and physical pain is hard to deal with. Believe me, that's enough to put people into depression alone.
Right.
So I don't want to make light of people's suffering. I want to acknowledge it because people will say, well, I'm in this situation, I'm in a hospital bed, I'm in this or that. Um, and I also don't want to say that you stuff down your feelings and never feel pain and feel sad or feel sorry for yourself because you wouldn't be human without it. We need to cry. We need to be angry. We need to acknowledge our feelings. The difference is you cry and then you release it and then you move through it. When you stay there and you're stuck there, that's when it's a problem.
Well, I kind of would like, Lacey, you mentioned something earlier that I'd like to have you back on the show because if you could teach us how to acknowledge it and to release it and to move on,
Right.
I mean, we'd be helping me and
Right.
it'd be me as a brother.
Well,
So,
I'm happy to do some demonstrations and help you and teach you the emotional release method and the Ho'oponopono. People can Google that. It's I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. It's that simple. And what I did was I had index cards and I wrote down people on each card that I needed to forgive. I wrote down circumstances that happened to me that I needed to forgive and I will end myself. And I will tell you, I had a stack this big. And I slowly would tap each individual card just so that I had this frequency and energy. And I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And I would do it every night before bed, and it would make me tired and help me fall asleep. I'd do it again in the morning. And I will tell you that I had someone who I hadn't spoken to in 14 years and they called me out of the blue. They were one of the people on my cards that said, I noticed something had changed in our relationship, and I would love to figure out a way that we can resolve things out of the blue.
how,
Nothing had changed. That's the magic of prayer. That's the magic of Ho'oponopono, and it's the magic of setting intention and manifesting what you want. We are that powerful. We are powerful beyond measure. And so when you focus on what you want and you want to set expectations, and here's something that happened to me very recently. I've been trying to write a book for 10 years. And every time I sat down to write, who am I to write a book? What do I have to say that hasn't been said before? I'm not smart. What do I have to write about? Why is someone going to listen to me? And it would spin over and over and over again. And I finally let go of all of that. And as soon as I did, the title came to me, and every belief is a lie. And then, and I'm not joking, people were coming to me asking me to speak. I hadn't traveled because of the COVID restrictions, and suddenly I found myself in Las Vegas on a stage. I found myself in Anaheim on a stage. I was in Miami. I was in Columbia University speaking. I'm going to be at Harvard speaking. Like all of these podcasters and people coming towards me, when you're in alignment with your life purpose and doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you let go of those negative beliefs and just, I had this image of myself on a stage with a best-selling book wearing a green dress. And I just, every morning and every night, I just focused on it. And then the crazy thing was, 6 months later, I started writing that book. And then within 9 months, I had a best-selling book. I was on a stage, and unbelievably, I had friends came with me shopping to go get a dress for speaking. And I didn't even realize it was a green dress. And I got home, and as I unpacked it to put it away, I started crying. I was like, this is the dress that I saw myself on stage with. We are that powerful. And so we can set expectations and do things that we never thought possible, but we have to believe it. We have to set intention. And it's baby steps. I had to release those negative beliefs first. And then everything started to come. Everything started to show up. Everything started to happen. And so I want to give you the idea of what's possible, and that you can have a meaningful life no matter what.
That's, I'm going to end it. I'm going to end something. That's perfect. I mean, the crux of it is, stroke survivor, you don't have to be a victim. Your life isn't over. Your life is ahead of you. It's look through the front windshield of life. It is possible. Anything you want. You use it. Use your stroke as a purpose. Find your purpose. You have one. Guarantee you. If you're breathing air, you have a purpose here.
Right.
Lisa, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. I can cry. I'm just so glad. But thank you for being there. Hope you come back. And really want to thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
All right, bye, Lynn. Well, by the way, people, we'll put links to everything we talked about in the trips. So, everybody, have a great day. Bye.
Set me on fire.